did that speech at Expo. Everybody was psyched about Pinball 2000. They wanted to see all about the development. You know, when I made my speech, I had a lot of friends in high places that had pretty much told me, I think the writing's on the wall for you guys. I think that Neil has reached the conclusion that he's going to shut down pinball. And so I thought, okay, how do I play this? I gotta, you know, I have to make a presentation on this thing, which was, I think, an engineering feat. But I had this nagging feeling that the baby was going to be stillborn.
I think for a lot of us that was a shock. You know, everybody always knew, you know, pinball could go away at any moment. Sure, you know, it was not in its heyday anymore, but he gave the speech that sounded like, you know, it was imminent. And a lot of us were going, how can that be? I mean, Revenge from Mars is hugely successful. Star Wars is just getting going and looks like it's going to be hugely successful.
It was clear to me after the fact that George knew something was up. Just the feeling, I mean, I think that's been recorded, that speech that George gave. I think that's probably pretty indicative of what everyone felt. You know, he was choked up and everyone's choked up.
His games include Corvette, Johnny Mnemonic, NBA Fast Break, Monster Bash, and Revenge from Mars. It's our pleasure to introduce as a first-time speaker, head speaker, at the Expo, George Gomez. George?
Hello? Can you hear me? Before I start talking to you, I'm going to show you a few minutes of eye candy just to get you excited, and then we'll talk. So much for the eye candy. There's one more tape. We'll show it last thing, and then we'll do questions later. But first, I want to tell you the story, and I want to tell you the story firsthand. What you're going to hear are my opinions. These are not the opinions of Williams Electronics Games, WMS Industries, etc. That's the disclaimer. Doesn't mean I'm pissed. It doesn't mean that you can't. You can ask me how many games we make, because if I try answering that question, there's a WMS Ninja Strike Team that rappels in from the ceiling and takes me out. So, black ninja suits with WMS on the back.
Female ninja assassins.
If I stand here, can you hear me? Yep. Do I have to be here? Is this good? Okay. In order to really understand where you are at any given point in time, I truly believe that you need to fully realize where you've been. And I think that's really key to everything that we do. Does anybody remember a bad 80s movie called Brainstorm? In this movie, for those who haven't seen it, there's a device with these really cool transducers. It's a helmet, you put it on, and it records your brain waves, and it manages to interpret them such that once I get them on this Brainstorm tape or whatever, you can wear the helmet and you can feel everything I've felt, everything I've seen. It feels like you're living my experience. And I really wish that technology was true, because right now I would make you all put on the helmets and feel what I've felt over the last 2 years. It's really important. I hope that you feel a piece of my story, because the thing about the tale of Pinball 2000 is that it is about passion. It is about a bunch of guys trying to make something happen in an arena that isn't particularly conducive at this particular point in time. So I'm going to take you through the really good stuff, and then I'm going to take you through the really bad stuff, and then we'll talk about it, and it'll be like therapy. So now I want to say a word about one of the most powerful cultures in the history of pinball. And you need to understand a little bit about that culture so that you know where this comes from and why it happened. And that culture I'm talking about is the Williams Engineering Department. 1,000 years from now, when an archaeologist digs over 3401 North California Avenue, besides all the toxic waste from the 1930s transformer production, what they're going to find is they're going to find the clan of pinball. And in this clan, there is all of the things that make up this living, breathing organism made up of all these different guys. I've been really fortunate to have worked in some of the most challenging creative environments in the world, I think. I worked at Marvin Glass & Associates, a premier designer and inventor of toys, inventing toys, and that was a highly challenging creative environment. In order to sell 3 items a year, I had to invent 52 things, and I had to take those 52 things to prototype and show them to toy companies. That was a challenging creative environment. Williams Electronics Games has, in some ways, raised the bar beyond that. It has been more challenging to work there as a designer, even than it was for me to work at Marvin Glass inventing toys. The reason I went to Williams initially was not what you might think. I did not go there with this dying need to design pinball machines. I went there not necessarily with a love of the game. I went there to challenge myself because I looked at the toys I was designing and I said, I get an LED and a 9-volt and a little Mabuchi motor, and I've got to make this thing cost $14.95 at Toys R Us. And then I looked at pinball, and this was the heyday of Pat Waller's putting $100 mechanisms on a playfield, and I'm thinking that looks pretty fun to me. I want to spend $4,000 making the coolest toy I can make. That drove me there, and the personal challenge of trying to find this environment that would challenge me again. Every 6 years I get bored and I do something else. I worked at Midway in the early '80s on video games. I did pixel graphics, 1 pixel at a time. I designed these really cool controls and worked on games, and I got bored with that and I moved on. Williams to me was this place where the lore of Steve Ritchie, guys that could design 15,000 pinball machines for a title and essentially live life completely. 15,000 machines, no big deal. Do it every time up. This was challenging. I wanted to see if I could swim with the sharks, and that's what drove me there. Now, once I got in there and I started working on pinball, pinball kind of saturated me and became a part of me. I think the way that it is a part of you. And it's something that's taken me by surprise. I really did not expect that. I expected it to be another cool design job, and I thought that I was going to get my jollies by playing with, cool toys and cool tools, and this company was going to, make me a star. At Williams Electronics, spiritual leaders walk the halls. We're talking about passionate men with insane visions and bulletproof demeanors that insist that they're right. You have never seen grown men screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs in the hallway fighting over a multi-ball rule. You would think that we were talking about nuclear proliferation with the amount of passion that goes into the product that we make. The nuance, of the return off the right ball guide, to the right flipper on that loop shot. Is it too high on the flipper? These discussions are endless. They consume us. You're talking about the most brutal critics in pinball. They make you guys look easy. And the reason I say that is because the guys inside Williams that design pinball machines not only criticize you, but they know what the answer is to the problem. You guys criticize me, but sometimes you don't know what the answer is. There is such pride in this engineering department that we have never once reverse engineered the competition's product. We have never brought in a machine to find out what made it tick. And I have to tell you that Ferrari reverse engineers Lamborghini's product. But there is an element of pride that says the competition is down the hall, not down the street. So this is a flavor for this culture, this environment. You know, at night, John Papaduke says that the ghosts of the great designers walk the halls. And when you're in your office at 2 o'clock in the morning, all day long you were sure that ball guy was in the right place. And for some ungodknown reason, you know, at 3 o'clock in the morning you decided to move it a 16th of an inch. That's, I think, the inspiration of those guys. I hope. It was this passionate group that was repeatedly challenged to step up and try to fix the business of pinball. Management said we need to make it profitable. The world has changed. No one wants what you guys are doing. You're boring everybody. Invent something new. We just cannot continue to repeat ourselves. We have put umpteen million heads on the playfield. We have created layer upon layer of ramps. We have convoluted rule sets, we have video modes, we have all this stuff, and guess what? It's not making a difference. All we're doing is just rehashing ourselves. And management says this has got to stop, you have got to come up with something, or we're done, because we just can't exist inside of this economic model. Our company's a business, you've heard that in this forum a lot, and that business has to make sense. Make it fun. That was the criteria. And, you know, make it fun, they said, and they will come. I have been doing leisure entertainment product for 20 years now. And I have to tell you, the other day I played Revenge from Mars in sort of a mental preparation for this, and I spent an hour on the game, and I came away thinking, this is fun. This product is fun. It's entertaining me. I drained my third ball, and my bonus got me the extra ball. I was jazzed. I mean, you can't plan on that, but I was jazzed. It was fun. I'm not so sure that it's enough to make it fun anymore. And this is a personal thing, and it's one of those things that's discussed constantly. Because I think I made a fun game, and we haven't set the world on fire. But more about that later. Management's call to action on this was first answered by John Papaduke with his version of Pinball 2000. His version of Pinball 2000 had a 27-inch monitor mounted in the back of the back box where the translite typically is. And I have to tell you that engineering as a whole believed in this and followed this vision for about 6 months. I was somehow troubled. I was very troubled because I was around in the 80s, working at Midway. I saw Caveman, I played Caveman, maybe Pac-Man, ran into Gators, was gnawing at me. These things were bothering me. The lack of interactivity was making me feel like, you know, we really need to put the video someplace where we can do something with it. But we went in this direction, and I'll tell you, this business of interacting with the ball and the video was troublesome because there wasn't an easy way to do it. There really wasn't an easy way to do it. There was a lot of conversation, but it wasn't, you know, you see it, you see the after effect and you think, oh yeah, clever, awesome, obvious. It wasn't that way at that particular moment in time. Neil Castro, then chairman of the company, calls a meeting of the engineering. And at this meeting, basically the key elements of game design, the designers and the programmers, maybe a few other people. Larry's running the meeting. He wants to know what's going on with Pinball 2000. I mean, we're spending their money. Every day that goes on is a day that, you know, we're essentially spending their money. During the course of this meeting, Larry reports on progress. Yeah, Neil, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. Neil says, who here does not believe this is the best direction that we need to be taking? This is the direction that we need to be following. And 3 hands went up, and there was a silence, and the 3 hands: Mark Buena, Pat Lawler, George Gomez, absolute known troublemakers. So, what's your problem? Well, it's not interactive. It's not, it's just, we're playing up there, we're playing down here, we're playing up there. We're already doing that with the dot matrix. This is not going to set anybody on fire. And, Neil has a way with words. He says, well, boys, this is the direction the company's going in, and basically there are 3 choices. And those choices are, you jump on the bandwagon and you help these guys out as best you can and follow this vision of the company. You invent something better, or you get the hell out, because it's that simple. There is no room for dissension at this point in time. We have to be together. We have to make this work. At the time, I was dating this woman in Boston, and the day of the meeting, we were going to San Francisco for one of those girlfriend romantic weekend things. She sets it up, and you just go, yeah, no problem. I'll meet you at the airport, catch a plane. The meeting's at 1 o'clock. I got a 3 o'clock flight out, and I call her and say, I might have to meet you in San Francisco because this is not looking good. It was a terrible weekend. I carry one of these, and you ever open up my one of these, it's got all these drawings in it, and God forbid, some psychoanalyst would get a hold of my notebook from that weekend, because I was totally distracted and just kind of did this all, and like I said, it wasn't a good weekend. So I come back, and Pat comes to see me, and he says, that meeting was about gauging our commitment to this product. And I don't think he walked away feeling real warm and fuzzy about this. I think, we're in danger. We have lived under this danger for a while now in engineering, but every time it gets really close, it's very scary. They're going to yank the plug, okay? They're going to yank the plug. We start talking about trying to make this video interactive, and we decide that we have experience with this mirror technology from the 80s. In the 80s, video games could not afford the massive amounts of memory that you have in video games today. So video games are made up of tiny little things, 32 pixels by 32 pixels big, and they were called sprites or picture blocks, and you could move a lot of them, but you couldn't draw scenery. You couldn't make, I couldn't draw a planet or a city, etc. So what we used to do is we would leave the video move, and then we would take plastic and cardboard and create the scenery and marry the 2 things with something called a combining mirror. It's a see-through mirror that takes the 2 objects and reflects them together so that to the eye they appear to be together. That's exactly what that is. Now, I did not invent the combining mirror. Some guy at Disney invented the combining mirror. What I invented is the interaction between this virtual object on the playfield and the pinball. And our Eureka deals with that little bit of technology. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I told you about what this is. In the chaos after the meeting, Larry says, well, if you and Pat think you can do something, you should do it, because this doesn't look great, okay? That meeting was a troublesome meeting. It basically splintered engineering. It splintered this group, which is why I wanted to talk to you about the culture of that group. When we came out of that meeting, Dwight Sullivan said to me, you guys don't have a better idea. You're just being assholes, and you just, you're just causing trouble. There's no better idea here. You just shut up and get on the bandwagon. John's mad at me, John Papaduk, because this is his thing, and I basically said it's not good enough. So coming out of that meeting, it wasn't great. So we we start talking about doing something, and Pat's going, you know, I got all these shiny new tools set up in my garage. We really ought to do it off-site because, you know, Dwight might come in your room and let's say something about the thing we're building, and then, you know, you're going to feel bad, and it's not going to be cool. So, now, let me talk to you about Eureka. You know, you hear about Eureka, you know, this thing inventors do, you know, when they discover, realize, envision. If you've played Monster Bash, you know that Eureka does not happen when Dr. Frankenstein decides that he's going to animate a guy made from parts from a bunch of other dead guys. That's not when Eureka happens. He envisions, I'm going to animate this guy. I'm going to go to the cemetery, I'm going to send Igor, and he's going to come back with these body parts. I'm going to put them together, I'm going to bring this guy to life. That's not when Eureka happens. Eureka happens when he throws the switch, and the electrodes energize Frankenstein, and the table comes down, and Frankenstein comes to life, at which point, you know, he screams, "It's alive." That's his version of Eureka, and that is Eureka. So now I'm going to describe Eureka to you as it happened, what I consider to be the first time in Pinball 2000. The wonderful thing about Pinball 2000 is that Eureka blessed us throughout the process. If it hadn't, if everyone hadn't stepped up and been an inventor at some point in time, you wouldn't be seeing Pinball 2000. Pinball 2000 would not have happened. So it's a Friday night, and it's about 9 o'clock, it's late. During the development of Monster Bash, and engineering is pretty much deserted except for Lyman Sheets, programmer extraordinaire, working away on finishing touches for Monster Bash. And I'm in my office with my foam core, my trusty hot glue gun, and all the elements, you know, my X-Acto knife, and the things that I use to do what I do. And I start building that model that you saw. You know, here's the model. It's quarter scale. 3/16 foam core is precisely 3/4 of an inch at quarter scale. Piece of plexiglass. If you look in here, if you look closely, you'll find a slide from the movie Johnny Mnemonic. It's kind of what I had laying on my desk. So I made this thing, and I started screwing around with it. You know, if you look at the playfield drawing that I shrunk and printed, it's a Monster Bash. So I take this thing and I put it together, and I take my flashlight, and I go, oh my God, Eureka! This is going to work. So it's 9 o'clock, and the phone rings in Marengo, Illinois. Pat Waller picks up the phone, and yeah, Pat, this thing's going to work, man. This thing, you know, the video on the playfield. Yeah, okay. Come on, you're coming over tomorrow, right? Yeah. Pat, click. I go running down the hallway to see Mr. Sheets, and I say, Lyman, look at this, our future. Look at it, check it out. Lyman looks up, and he goes, look at the board. Will you look at the board? Look at the board, look at that display. He's working on Monster Bash. And, you know, to Lyman, getting rid of the bog in the dot matrix display is what separates the men from the boys as far as programming. Okay? So he starts, you know, it's about IRQ, blah, blah, blah. Well, then Lyman, look! It's our future! You know, look at this display. Nobody wants to listen. Okay. Following day, off to Marengo. That lives way, way, way out there. I mean, I don't know what you know about Marengo. I don't know what you know about the local geography, but it's out there. And the only cool thing is I've got this brand new M3, and these roads are deserted. And it became a ritual that the very first time, this thing was about a month old, and I got it up to 130 miles an hour before I ran out of nerves, and then tool into Pat's garage. You know? And this became my adrenaline rush. I'm out of here at the end of every day at Pat's during this time. It was great fun. Clears the head. So we're in this garage, and in this garage, you know, we're talking about Williams, and we're talking about pinball, and we're cutting wood, and we're putting that thing together, that hollow pin thing. That we took an old bottom, and we, basically started building all this stuff. And what we did is we did monitor weightlifting. There's a 19-inch monitor in there left over from when I used to try to develop 80s video games. And that's the reason there's an Amiga hooked to it. In the 80s, there was a period of my life in which I was trying to pitch game ideas. And I was running around to anybody who would listen to me saying, look, this is a great game idea. And, more often than not, they just kind of blew me off. But I had this trusty Amiga with an old D-Paint program. I had a bunch of images from games I tried to pitch, that big blue robot that you saw in the videotape. I was trying to fire it up for you today, but the Amiga was as cantankerous today as it was when we were working on it in the garage. So we built that thing, and I mean, we did monitor weightlifting, Hold the monitor up, Pat, what do you think? Oh, yeah, that's it, sure. Okay, quick, get a pencil. That's how that thing came about. I mean, it came about using this, and then, we didn't make any drawings, we just kind of measured this, and, I'm measuring, and Pat's sawing, table saw's cooking, the place is a mess, there's sawdust all over. Patricia, Pat's wife, is bringing out food, and we did this for about 3 weeks, mostly at nights and weekends, because I was still working on Monster Bash, and Mr. Sheets didn't want, his vision was, the Pinball 2000. He said, yeah, whatever, dude, that's nonsense. So during that time, he just was engrossed in Monster Bash, as he's wont to do, and so we built this thing, we brought it in, and basically everybody was jazzed. Everybody, we brought in this conference room, crowd of people, everybody from engineering, everybody's like, wow, look at that. Ideas about what to do with it start just pouring out. I mean, everybody in the room's got something to say about it. This is the shift in gears that sends us in this direction. John's a little upset. He's got, 6 months in the game. He's got a play field. He's got video. He's got things happening. But eventually, John comes around. And one of the very first things that happens once we get going on this project is that John's team actually brings up the very first true interactive video image on a playfield that reacts to a pinball. Cameron Silver programs this thing. It looks like a TIE fighter because even back then their theme was Star Wars. And it's an old TIE fighter because they haven't gotten any material on the new movie yet. So this TIE fighter hovers around and drops to the center of the playfield and kind of hangs around there. And you hit it with the ball and boom, it explodes. And man, that was another eureka. And we're all walking in there going, wow, look at that, that's cool, it's going to do what we said. So the whole process is full of these things. And these are the things that made it. These are the things that made it all happen. During that time, one of the problems was that when it was determined that Star Wars was so far out, management decided that's too far. You guys have to do something before that. So what they wanted was they didn't want to change the schedule, even though we essentially had abandoned the platform and picked up a new platform and started in that direction. They did not want to change the schedule. They wanted the old schedule to fit the new design. So John's team gets relegated to second game, and they begin searching for volunteers for first game. And, Lyman wasn't real happy. When I went in and said, Lyman, we really ought to do this. And he is still up to his ears in Phantom Flip, And would not let that die. So, we volunteer, and now the fun really starts, because now it's not about making mock-ups, now we got to make this thing real. And we do have this list that we talked about in attempting to address what we thought were problems, the business side of pinball, the functionality, etc., are just as important in some respects as is it fun. They are equally vital to the process. So we begin this process with Larry running these weekly meetings in which all of the problems that were currently pending were addressed. what are we going to do about this? The Germans want a handguard that is accessible to location, but you know, the guy at the location can't have access to the money. All these different problems began, and slowly but surely, ideas emerged from the collective 45, 50 people that we had working on this thing to solve every problem. It was an environment unlike any I've ever worked in, because literally we invented new things every week. Whether they were, you know, the skid rails for the bottom of the playfield so that you could get a playfield out quickly, the connector bus at the back, the concept of you know, transporting these playfields easily, just 1,000 details that if you ever have the opportunity to dive into a PIN 2000 and analyze, you will discover. In the midst of this, management is still very impatient, very, very impatient. Show and tells constantly, disruptive, absolutely harassing show and tells. It's the nature of the beast, you know, and Larry had a really good anti-executive force field, but every once in a while, the sucker would go down. And then, boys are in shit. So, you know, there's a chapter, when I write the book on Pinball 2000, you know, which is going to read some, you know, the title, I can see it, is going to say, Pinball 2000, you know, the game designer's view, or some such. There's going to be a chapter called Inventors All. And Inventors All really talks about those thousands of inventions that happen in the nick of time, miraculously, to make this thing work. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about each and every one of those things that happen miraculously, but I can't. So we go to London. We haven't tested games yet. We are so buggy. You know, this thing is, it's unstable at best. But the reception in London, and to the company's credit, they absolutely totally supported us. They threw one hell of a party at the Museum of Natural History. You know, black tie, killer food, you know, pretty girls, you know, the works. And it was great. You know, we're like walking around, and we got these games on the floor, and there's, you know, we're up against our sister company has got some heavy hitters. You know, Hydro Thunder, video games of note. And when those people got out of the presentation in which the tapes were shown, each of the theme tapes, this is, you know, it's a normal procedure for us. We show these tapes to our customers, our distributors, and few operators, and then we let them at the games. And when the doors opened to this room that the pinballs were in, there was an island, there was a couple of islands of revenges, you know, back to back in a circle. They were mobbed, and you know, there's photographs and videotape of this, and it was an amazing thing. You know, it was an amazing thing that this hunger for a product that did something, and at that particular point in time, that was the product. London came and went, games went on test. The coolest thing about the internet this time around was I really enjoyed all the messages that people send in. It was really exciting to go to work every day, 15, 20 messages. You know, this is so cool, I can't believe this, my favorite of all time. You know, someday I'll have the Pinball 2000 thing framed, and, you know, right underneath it's going to say, the guy who sent me the message, and maybe he's in this room, all it said was, "You've blown my fucking mind." Whoever you are, you made my day. That's all. You know, one little sentence. I had to deal with the guys who were criticizing it and hadn't seen it yet, too. You know, that never ceases to amaze me. And I was telling Larry, I said, geez, you know, this website thing was a big mistake. You know, I got all these guys going to the website, and all of a sudden I got a critique like the guy played it for an hour, and he hasn't seen it yet. So, anyway, I just want to talk briefly about, you know, production. Production was was, again, one of those problematic things that, startup, and if you got one of the early games, you probably didn't get a perfect game. You have to understand that one of the challenges of doing this game was that everything was going on concurrently. And typically that's not the case. What I mean by that is you've got an operating system that the game runs on being written at the same time that the game is being written. And you've got a cabinet, mechanical platform going together at the same time that I'm designing playfields. We don't know, yesterday the playfield was 46 inches long, today the playfield's 43 inches long. The cabinet's doing this, and I have to say I drove some of those things, and we'll talk about why. But all of these things are happening concurrently. We have new artists. We've never designed a video game in pinball, and we have new artists with new tools, and these guys are teaching themselves 3D video art overnight. I had this guy built because Marty the Martian, because it was going to take the video boys a month to draw this, and so what I did is I hired one of our trusty sculptors, and I told him, I said, I'm going to make Marty the Martian. I want him to be like this. And he goes, what are you going to do with it? I said, oh, I'm making a trophy, because I didn't want him to know what we were doing. We took this guy, and he's an outside vendor, by the way. So we took this guy and we scanned him. We sent him to a house that digitizes three-dimensional objects. We scanned him and we brought him back into Lightwave, the program that we use to draw our video art now, and then we worked from there. Now today, we can draw this. We can draw this in probably a day and a half. We can draw this color, texture, the whole shebang. It takes another week to animate it, but we can do this. We couldn't at the time, so we were moving. Everything is going on. If you come up and you get a chance to look at some of the drawings, you'll notice that the tops of the back boxes are called test fixture number 1 and test fixture number 2. In an effort to maintain security about what we were doing, because we were so excited about it, we used 2 cabinet vendors. We sent the tops to one guy, and we called them test fixtures. We sent the bottoms to the other guy. Now, the guy looks at the bottom, he knows what that is, right? He said, look, it looks like a pinball machine. It might be 3 inches shorter, but it looks like a pinball machine. But you never know what test fixture number 1 is. So, if you talk to the Jedi, if you talk to the guys that worked on Star Wars, they have a story like mine about their product. And the story I've told you doesn't include every little nuance. And it doesn't include every little nuance because I want you to buy my book. But, you want a happy ending, don't you? You want a happy ending. Our heroes struggling to overcome incredible odds succeed. I get the girl, right off into the sunset. I designed Pin 2000 with all my heart and all my skill. But these are dark times for us. Remember, these are my opinions. This is not an official statement from anyone at WMS. These are my opinions. My spider sense is tingling. My spider sense has been on fire for the last month. Pinball will survive. I'm here to tell you that. I fear that our company may have lost the ability to make it make economic sense. And if that's the case, being that it's a business, they might choose not to be in the pinball business anymore. The engineering department that I so lovingly spoke of is in danger. And the brands that we recognize are in danger. And Gary Stern might just be the last man standing. Please remember that that I tried to elevate the art. Williams has been very good to me. the flood of memories is indeed a brainstorm. If Black Friday comes, my brothers and I in pinball will live to fight another day. I have one more tape, and then we will do questions.